Hello and welcome to the GRADD Dialogue. These days, coronavirus is probably one of the most topic that talked about every second, all across the country. One thing that it kind of supersedes the issue that we should be really talking at the present time too is the census. 2020 is a census time. We do every 10 years, and it is so important. And it's so important not only for for getting the right number, but also affects all the federal funds and state funds and anything we receive, for the public assistance, to the planning and everything else, including planning for the health and everything else that has impact on the census numbers and how we fare with other communities. Today, my guest is Keith Sanders. Keith is, and I guess the real job that you have is the executive director of the Hagar Foundation,
That's
Hagar
correct.
Education Foundation, rather. However, he's been appointed, or I guess maybe you volunteer or appointed everything else to be little both to be the chairperson or the contact person leader for the Owensboro-Davis County Census Complete Count Committee. So we're going to talk about that because census is coming and everything else. Also would like to mention that Keith, I've known you for I don't know how many 30 some plus years or so.
We're moving toward our fifth decade.
There you go.
Friendship.
Right. Yeah.
Jen, you and I, you'll recall back in the early 70s.
Gosh, yes.
We were at the Green River Area Development District. We were over one of our Martinizing cleaners downtown.
Yeah.
There was about five of us in
when I
there.
started at GRADD, you were already there.
I was there. I was
six people that you were one of them.
I think just before you. And
Right,
so
yeah.
GRADD is a wonderful organization. It's had a really positive impact on the development of our 7-county area.
Right.
So
Well,
that
thank you.
an experience that was good for me, and I enjoyed the opportunity to work with.
And I think
a lot of
you were doing you were the director of
Human
aging
service-
service,
human
human
services
services, which
plan.
is so important. And now you kind of helping us, the whole community on the census side of it, which is also so important for the human services too.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely. Back in December of 2018, County Judge Executive Al Mattingly and the Davis County Fiscal Court passed a resolution calling for the creation of a complete count committee, and it was charged with ensuring that every Davis County resident was counted in the 2020 census.
Right.
So I was, as you say, designated, named, and somewhat volunteered to serve as a chair of that committee.
Right.
And it's been a terrific group of volunteers. We've been meeting every other month since January of 2018.
Right.
We had about 30 to 35 people at every meeting.
Yeah, no, I mean, for GRADD, for the census is the most important thing for GRADD anyway, like anybody else. And, we've been working with all the 7 counties and surrounding counties too. But I had to say that the Owensboro-Davis County, thanks to you, has been the most active and very participatory, when it comes to the census and complete count committee. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. We hope to make certain that every resident of Kentucky in every county is counted, and of course GRADD's we're a part of the GRADD service area, and we want to be supportive and encouraging every county to do its best to get everyone counted. We've been Davis County had 96,000 people or thereabouts in the 2010 census. Now that was 10 years ago.
Right.
And now it's believed that our population is 101 or 102,000. The Census Bureau, which is a part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, every 2 or 3 years does something called the Community Population Survey. And it's those surveys, and they're statistically sound, they're rigorous. They show our population probably somewhere in the vicinity of 101, 102,000. But what's critical, though, for us, and what will be in the headline in 2021 will be how many people we get counted. It's really, we want to be over 100,000 as a community. It conveys that we're growing and moving forward. We want the city of Owensboro to get over 60,000. And we think that will happen if we get everyone counted. But there's some challenges with that.
And I think just like the high school sports and games, and also trying to get the pride up and who you are and everything else. Even Owensboro too. We want to be still continue the fourth largest city in the community in the state. Maybe maybe more than the Bowling Green. That kind of friendly competition goes on too.
Well, let me just back up and say, in the 2010 census, we did pretty well in terms of responding as a community. 82% of the households in the 2010 census in Davis County responded to the questionnaire. In other words, they received a questionnaire in the mail and they returned it. 82% of the households.
That is pretty high.
That's higher than Evansville, Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington.
Right.
So our citizens did a good job returning it. In spite of that, in 2010, that still meant we had about 7,000 households, or nearly 20,000 people. The only way we could account for them was somebody knocking on the door.
Right.
And that's what happened. So what we want to do is reduce the number of doors that need to be knocked on.
Let's talk about the things have changed. Like you mentioned that you can't even remember how we did in 2010. But I'm sure that in your communication with the census staff as well, how this is going to be different than what people were participating in 2010.
Very good question. Heretofore, the only way that the census received that information was when we returned a questionnaire.
Right.
This time, for the first time ever, households will have the opportunity to respond to the 9 questions. That's all there are in the questionnaire. They can respond by going online or by using their telephone.
Right.
And 90% of the households in the United States, according to some of this research,
should be able to
have a telephone that they can respond to the census with, should they desire to do so. So we are really encouraging, particularly those population groups that are at risk of an undercount of getting that census form returned early. Okay, and how does this matter? Well, in the 2010 census in Kentucky, we had over 10,000 children ages 0 to 5 that were not counted.
Wow.
Small children 0 to 5 are at risk of not all of them being counted.
Right.
What are the implications of this?
Yeah.
Well, it cost Kentucky $12 million in federal funding, programs that go to child care subsidy programs, Head Start, programs specifically serving young children. We lost $12 million in 2011 because of that. And then we lost $12 million each of the next 9 years, totaling $120 million in program dollars.
Just only one program that you're talking about.
Well, these are programs serving small children. That's only part of what comes in.
Exactly.
But $120 million in Kentucky. GRADD, our share of that in this area is probably $2 or $3 million that we lost here in the GRADD region. So it's imperative we get everybody counted.
And I think that it's, even though the whole process has changed, maybe more easy, more practical for people to participate, but we also got to realize everybody else has the same thing too. So there's still the competition is there,
Well, the one major area of that competition comes right back to the Constitution, which requires every 10 years, so we started in 1790, there shall be a census taken to count every resident living in the United States. Well, that census is foundational to representative democracy. It determines how many seats Kentucky has in Congress.
Keith, I think that's so important, and Kentucky has been losing over the years.
Exactly right.
But I think going back to the census count itself, some of the misinformation, and the community and the media and everything else is that, and I think maybe you can correct those things as well, is that this is not something to spy on folks.
Absolutely.
And I also read that nobody has an access to the data. Even the president cannot just ask for it.
The security around census data is probably as good as there is in the country. Our census staff person serving this area, a field representative, a lady named Molly McCarroll, formerly worked for the CIA before she came back here. And she said the security around the census data tops what they were doing in the CIA. There is nothing about the census that was anything most of us wouldn't disclose. They don't ask for a Social Security number. They don't want to know how much money we make. They're asking just real basic questions. So there are concerns, understandably, on the part of our people living in our country today. There's distrust of institutions, most institutions, and that can impact our efforts to get everyone counted. So that's a really important distinction to make. It also says every resident shall be counted. Now, what's interesting is the United States in this past decade, starting in 2010, we had the lowest birth rate in the history of the United States. The lowest birth rate in the history of the United States. We have the lowest rate of geographic mobility in 50 years. People aren't moving to another town to look for work. So if we're going to grow, we want to be sure every resident, documented, undocumented, political asylum refugees, every one of them needs to be counted because it determines, as you just said, our federal funding, which is $675 billion a year in federal funds comes into the states.
And also, I think we had I had Abby Shelton from the city of Owensboro speak about what's happening in Owensboro in terms of some of the redevelopment, and that's where the federal funds comes in too. It's important that. Unfortunately, some of the low counts has been in those areas. Maybe you can call it, the low-income minority, whatever that is. And there are also some concern that I don't want to say anything, and I'm so worried about those things. I think it's important they need to be totally counted to the point that
and they need to be assured that their data and this information is sacrosanct. It's going to be held on to. Nobody's going to abridge it. Abby, of course, is our community development block grant. She sees those funds, which come from HUD, does a wonderful job, and those funds are dependent upon two things. One, how many people are living in your community? If you got 200,000 people in your community, you're going to get more community development block grant funds. And they look at incomes and poverty ratios and all that, but ultimately
it's the numbers.
Population metric is the one that really counts. But back to your question about these various populations, one of the keys, we've tried to increase community awareness, the importance of the census for all of us. But what we've been doing for the last 10, 15 months is we have targeted, we're working with organizations, the senior citizen centers, agencies that serve these vulnerable populations because schools, family resource centers, they have trusted relationships with those families. So we are at Faust Elementary School, we have 2 family nights planned, promotions and giveaways to get people to come into the school, and they're going to encourage them to complete that form there.
The maybe minute or so we have, can you tell us about what is the timeline for this? When this is going to start? I know you're already working on all around, but when the volunteers going to be knocking on the door so people can get the mails and everything else.
March the 12th, which is tomorrow. There should be folks receiving in the mail some communication from the Census Bureau, probably a postcard saying, look, the census, April 1st is the Census Day, but people can respond before then. And they'll be encouraged when they receive these communications from the Census Bureau, starting between tomorrow and the 20th of March, I think, they'll receive all these things. They're encouraged to respond online if they wish to do so and complete the census form. But then then there will be, after that period, mailed questionnaires coming out.
I see.
And Census Bureau has verified all these households back in the fall. So those folks will get the questionnaire. If they haven't responded online by end of March, they're going to be getting these questionnaires. And so come the 1st of May, those households that have not responded, the Census Bureau will be able to keep this data in real time. Then the census takers will be going to those houses to knock on those doors. So that's the whole key right there, is to make that happen just like that. So, we're having Cliff Hagen Boys and Girls Club in the Southwest Quadrant. We know certain census tract areas are low response rates. The Maceo area is a low response rate. The southwest quadrant, the up along and down the river, rural areas can be problematic. So we've been working with groups that have relationships with these populations.
And that's why you have the complete count committee, where you have a representation from every aspect of the community working together on that.
Friday, March 13th, 1 o'clock, the Senior Center and the Davis County Public Library and the Daughters of American Revolution are sponsoring a genealogy day at 1 o'clock. What's that got to do with the census? Everything. If you want to get into genealogy, you got to go to the Census Archives. And so they're doing that. They're going to have a lot of folks down there with some celebration and doing some things. So we'll hopefully have some media coverage from that. So there's a lot of things like that going on. We've got this is a can-do community. We make things happen here. We can work together, and you know, at GRADD, you guys have been a part of that committee. Joanna, we've been working with, and these we think we're going to hopefully have some extra I count buttons, and we'll probably be sharing those with some of your neighboring counties.
Yeah, because I think it's important. I think our everything we do at GRADD, everything we do for the communities, it depends on the money we get from the state and federal agencies, and that depends on what population we have compared to the other populations. That's so important. I think Davis County is honored to have you, lead the charge of the volunteers and also agencies to really make sure that we have, like you said, complete count, and also remember I count. And anything we can do at GRADD, we're glad to do those things, and I want to wish you best of luck. And definitely, I think people watching the show need to go back and talk to their family or where they work to make sure that people are going to answer the census surveys or fill out the forms.
Absolutely, and we're grateful for the opportunity to be here today, and we're going to make this work. Our community can do it.
Keith, always nice talking to you on any different issues we've been at. I don't know how many times you've been on this show, talking about different things, and also again, always nice to have. Also, I'll cherish that we started together.
We sure did,
almost
and
at GRADD,
a lot of great memories there. A lot of great memories. It's been a lot of fun.
Right. Thank you again. We were talking to Keith Sanders. He's leading the Complete Count Committee for Owensboro, Davis County for the census. And if you have any questions, please contact any census information or contact Keith or myself, and we can get the information about the census. Remember, you're going to get something this week in the mail about the census, so please answer those things. And encourage your members, the family, the friends, neighbors, even your fellow workers to make sure they fill out the census. And so we can all get what it belongs to us as far as helping the communities and grow. Again, thank you for watching the GRADD Dialogue, and have a great day.